Hari Om, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Isha Doraj, and it is once again my humble pleasure to welcome you to the fourth evening of Ramayana Discourses by Sri Angajan. Over the past three evenings, Sri Angajan has been imparting the sacred knowledge from this epic poem in such a power-packed, interesting, humorous, and practical manner. As someone who has grown up with Sri Angajan teachings from a young child, interacting with and learning from Angajanji's discourses, youth development workshops, and personal conversations, and also listening to the CDs, DVDs, and reading Angajanji's books. I can truly attest to how blessed we are to receive this wisdom in such an inspiring, motivational, and practical manner. The knowledge received from Angajanji has helped my family, myself, and many others to cope with the challenges and stresses of life and to develop a strong intellect so that we are able to live a self-disciplined, value-based, and principle-centered life. I've noticed that so many people have the beautiful scriptures like the Ramayana at home, but they only take this out during Ramayana week once a year. They place it at their shrines, do arti, and listen to the chantings. But how many of us study the scriptures daily and contemplate this divine knowledge so that we can apply the teachings and principles to our daily life? How many of us truly make time to engage in spiritual upliftment and reflection? This is exactly where Sri Angajanji so masterfully helps us to decipher this knowledge. In following the story of the Ramayana, Angajanji has been delving deeper into the practical principles and life lessons that can be extracted for righteous, happy, moral, and stress-free living. Angajanji unravels the story of the Ramayana in eliciting the profound lessons which shows us all the importance of removing the ego, attachment, possessiveness, and desires, and to introspect on every action so that we may lead better lives and positively impact our future generations. So, without further ado, I welcome Sri Angajanji to continue this inspiring journey. Thank you.
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. The word Ramayana, as you may know already, literally means the journey of Rama. It symbolizes the journey of the soul. That is, what happens to a person from birth to death. In other words, it talks about the fall and the rise of a human being. Meaning, when a person falls emotionally, intellectually, even in our secular mundane world, in terms of your business and professional success, people fall, people make blunders, they lose money, they lose health, they lose relationship, they lose many things. So when you fall, why? And how to regain your status that you had once. So it describes the fall and rise. So various inspiring stories, descriptions, various anecdotes in the lives of these characters, Rama, Lakshmana, Sita, Dasharatha, Ravana. There are negative characters, there are positive characters. So all these characters and what is described in the Ramayana are nothing but an objective representation of the subjective phenomena. It is an external painting, a display of what is happening within the mind, within the bosom, within the heart of every human being. So as I mentioned to you one of the sessions earlier, you got to be careful when you take certain stories and anecdotes literally. They need to be understood. You got to understand the allegorical significance, the philosophical values that they convey. All right. So through these stories, you have to understand what is happening within, in your own mind. Because there is only one problem in your life. The problem is your mind. The problem is you, and the solution is also you. So every problems that you encounter in the outside world is an external, external expression of what is happening inside. So since our mind is always extrovert, our focus is always upon the outside world, these sages and saints painted this picture outside so that it acts as a mirror for you to see yourself. That's all. There's only one problem. Problem is your mind. You do not know how to handle your mind. You do not know how to handle your thoughts. That's where our main problem begins. I want to draw your attention in this context. In the relationship between Rama and Sita. Now here we take Rama and Sita as husband and wife, not as Jivatma and Paramatma that we discussed yesterday. As I told you, you can take it allegorically as well as, what's happening in our relationship, right? Rama as the husband, whose consort was Sita. Now, in the relationship between Rama and Sita, considered to be the ideal relationship, despite the controversies of Rama sending this pregnant Sita to the forest, etc. We'll analyze what do they mean, what are those stories indicate. But let's look at the relationship. And let's also compare as to why many relationship, I'm talking about marital relationship, it's applicable to other relationships as well, but let's focus upon the marital relationship. Why do marriage fails? Why do couples divorce? Why do they break up? And if at all those couple who are still in married, living under the same roof, not necessarily there is a joyous, happy relationship. There is so much of Cold War going on. Many families, it is the children that is holding them together. If there was no children, they would have split and gone long before. Other relationship, it could be external factors like the wealth that is holding them together. They could be married in the community of property. So divorce means lose our wealth. So they stick together, with the bitterness, etc. They don't have the guts to separate. But why? When you met your spouse, when you met your partner, you sow the seed of love. I'm talking about at the thought level, right? And then what happened? Life went on, you got married. And as life goes on, having got married 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, you find there is a gradual deterioration of joy, happiness. That freshness in that relationship seems to have deteriorated. What went wrong? When you met your spouse, when you fell in love, as they say, and they say it rightly also, although it is wrong, but they say it rightly, they fall in love. It's a big fall indeed. One ought not to fall in love, you got to rise in love. But what happens is, when couple enter in the relationship, they fall so badly, they break their skull and bone, and there is devastation later. And the couples who separate, when there are children, the sad part is that the children suffer. It is an extremely selfish approach to set for divorce based on your ego and selfishness when there are children involved in it. In that relationship, they are only thinking about one's own happiness. They don't think about the children's happiness. I am not happy with my spouse, let me go my way. What about the children? So what happens? Why do these feelings deteriorate? A lot of people tend to blame the spouse. The divorce is because he is like this. You can argue maybe he is a drunkard, he is a spendthrift, he may have other vices or whatever. Yes, I'm not saying you must put up with all the nonsense of your spouse. That's not what I'm saying. But the point is, if the other person is not according to the way you want her or him to be, we always tend to blame the other person. That's our problem. We don't introspect. So in this relationship between Rama and Sita, there are 3 very crucial elements that you need to understand in the relationship, which many young couple entering into the institution of marriage don't think about. And they believe that love is the most important element in marital harmony. And what they call love is far from love. It is infatuation, it is attachment, it is obsession, it is driven by lust and many other selfish thoughts. We spent time discussing that yesterday. So when they enter into the institution of marriage, they only focus upon love. That's only one element of relationship. There are 3 elements that you got to understand. They are love, trust, and respect. Love without respect is possessiveness. Trust without love and respect is not complete. So when there is a confluence of trust, respect, and love, that beautiful blend, the amalgam, the union of trust, respect, and love, it is called reverence. What husband need towards his wife is not just love, reverence. Husband must revere the wife and vice versa. The wife must revere the husband. In the relationship, on the basis of the mutual reverence, relationship lasts. There is joy, there is harmony, there is peace, there is excitement in the relationship. But if it is only one element, that is love, which is, love without respect and trust, it is infatuation. That is the problem. So in the relationship between Rama and Sita, it was mutual reverence. They gave space for each other. They respected their wish. They satisfied the other person's desires or interest as well. It is not based on expectation. When Rama was heading to forest, just to fulfill the wish of his father, he did not ask Sita to accompany him to Ayodhya. As I told you, many people think it's because she had 3 mother-in-laws at home. Not the reason, it's on the lighter side. It was her reverence to serve the man. She followed him throughout, and vice versa. He reciprocated. Then you may wonder, why did he send Sita to the forest? We'll discuss that. So examine your relationship. Examine your attitude, your feeling towards your spouse. Do you maintain those 3 elements, the trust, respect, and love? If it is not, to the extent these 3 elements are not fulfilled, to that extent, there will be pain, unhappiness, or dissatisfaction. So it is not just love. Love is only one of the elements. So in that mutual relationship, the relationship continued. Now, coming back to Ayodhya and in the forest, as I told you, we have only problem with our own mind. We do not know how to manage our mind. That's the only problem. Mind, human mind, if it is uncontrolled, it can be your worst enemy. A controlled mind, a disciplined mind becomes your best friend. A mind that is uncontrolled is your worst enemy. There's only one enemy for you. That stays between your 2 ears, the thoughts. Nothing else in the world can hurt you, gives you pain as much as your negative, uncontrolled thought. Nothing else. Your worst enemy cannot give you pain as much as your own negative, uncontrolled thoughts in your own mind. So here is a character, Ravana. What does Ravana mean? Again, as I said, a lot of people think Ravana as somebody who ruled Lanka. Ravana is right here, right now, in your mind. Ravana is a deadly combination of uncontrolled mind and uncontrolled ego. What does an uncontrolled mind do? An uncontrolled mind is greedy. It keeps gurgling or generating a lot of desires. Desires uncontrolled becomes greed. The more you get, the more you want. The more you want, the more you get. The more you get, the more you want. This vicious cycle goes on. Such a mind always feel what I would call as the if-only syndrome. Examine yourself. Every single one of you sitting and listening there, no matter which part of the world you're listening to, can be the best part of the world or the worst part of the world, you have an if-only syndrome, wherein you feel that if only I have this problem get sorted, how great our life would have been. It could be your children's behavior. There are parents who feels that business is good, their spousal relationship is good, family life is good, but the children don't study well, children don't work hard. That is constantly worrying them. If only the children is also behaving well, they're doing well, life will be good. We believe that. If the children was doing well, okay, children is good, but Wife is terrible. Something else comes. There are other people who has their children is well behaved, very good, no problem. Their job is good, but there could be a physical problem, diabetes or pressure or something like that. There is always something that is missing. That's what happened to Dasharatha as well. Remember, Dasharatha had 3 queens, everything is good, but one thing that was missing in his life was he had no issues, he had no children. If only, and the moment your desire for that particular thing is fulfilled, comes next one. But if only the people who don't have car of their own, they have to take public transport. If only I can afford to buy a car, even a small car is enough. How happy life would have been. I don't have to catch public transport. And the moment you get the car, so long as you're taking public transport or lift club, no problem. You never ever noticed the potholes on the road. Now that you bought your own car, you have to worry about your own tire maintenance of the car. You're very observant. Roads are terrible, potholes. You blame the municipality, you blame the government, you blame Sandral, everybody else who don't look after the car. The moment your desire for car is fulfilled, if only the road was better, or the petrol price is going up. This is the way it is. The second aspect of greed that you got to understand is that it's always seeking variety. It's a manifestation of greed as well. A man in the street who has no legs to walk around, ask him, what does he want? What is his dream? He looks at the people who are walking so comfortably. He says, if only I had 2 legs to walk around, how happy life would have been. Ask a man who's got 2 legs to walk around. He says he has to walk 5 kilometers every day to work in this cold weather. If only I had a scooter. You know, in South Africa, scooter is not very prevalent, or a 2-wheeler, but many other countries, especially Asian countries, India and many other neighboring countries, people travel to work by scooter or bicycle even. If only I had a scooter, how life would have been. Ask a man who's got a motorbike, a small car, rain, sometimes the rainy season comes, the roads are terrible, it's full of water, potholes, everything. If only had a small car. Ask a man who's got a small car, he wants a bigger car. Ask a man who's got a bigger car, he wants the best of car. Ask a man who's got the best of car that is available, he wants a designer car, a customized car, or a supercar. Ask a man who's got a supercar, he laments because he cannot afford to fly around the world in his private jet. The person who has the private jet, he laments because he doesn't have the private jet that his competitor owns or can afford. This is the way the human mind is. That aspect of the mind is represented by Ravana. Why? Because Ravana represents that insatiable nature of the mind. Ravana had the harems from heaven, damsels from heaven, for his personal private pleasures, but he wanted Sita. He was mesmerized by the beauty of Sita. That is called covetousness, something that you wish that somebody else possess. That is the nature of insatiable mind. The mind constantly seeks variety. When you get something, you want something other than. The mind never ever consider the blessings or the powerful, invaluable blessings that we have. Uncontrolled mind constantly seek varieties. It is insatiable, like fire. When you go to the Upanishads compare our mind like a fire. Why? Because the fire consumes everything that you put into. No sample of fire in the world says, thank you very much, I had enough. The mind is like that. We constantly crave for more and more and more, and our life gets wasted by accumulating, hoarding the toys You look at the kids who are obsessed and attached with toys. Adults also same thing. Only thing is that they play with toy cars, adult plays with the actual cars. Simply toys, nothing else. Children plays marble, adults play golf. It's an expensive toy, that's all. We get preoccupied. As a result, we do not realize the very purpose for which we are born in this world. So such a mind is constantly insatiable. Ravana's palace, I told you the story how he acquired it. It was a symbol of material splendor and everything, but something that he was missing. When he participated in the contest of winning Sita's hand, he failed. Ever since, it's been in his mind. That's number one. The second aspect that you got to understand, the ego. Uncontrolled ego thrives on self-comparison. I repeat, your uncontrolled ego thrives on self-comparison. Ego loves to compare oneself with the other people. And if the other people that you compare yourself with have got less than what you have, you feel a sense of superiority complex, you feel a sense of arrogance, you feel a sense of uppishness, and you look down upon the other people. That was Ravana. Uncontrolled ego. Uncontrolled ego wants the best for himself or herself. Uncontrolled ego wants the most beautiful for himself, the most expensive for himself. He wants to be the most popular. And once that is fulfilled, he feels empty inside, doesn't really add value. So this deadly combination of uncontrolled mind with numerous desires, seeking constantly varieties. Today, talking about varieties, humanity is addicted, a strange addiction to novelty. And the commercial world pampered that addiction to novelty. There are different types of addiction. Addiction is not about drugs and alcohol and gambling or whatever. There are other addiction which we tend to ignore. We are addicted to novelty. Every year, the same brand of mobile phone will produce newer version because they are fanning people's addiction to novelty. So does vehicle, so does car, so does fashion. A particular brand of outfit that you have purchased fits well. It is not old enough to discard, but then the same brand has produced a newer style. You want to get rid of it. Why? Addiction to novelty. I'm not saying you must keep wearing the same old clothes. I'm talking about the human mind. A mind that is addicted to novelty. An ego that is uncontrolled, who wants the best, who wants the most beautiful, who wants the most expensive, who wants the most who wants to be the most popular. If you are, remember, Ravana is living right inside you. There is a huge danger lurking there. Sooner or later, Ravanas begin to control you. So that Ravana decided to kidnap Sita. He plotted a plan to kidnap Rama's consort. So what did he do? He conferred with his evil friends, and one of them was Maricha. I'm sure you remember Maricha. When Rama and Lakshmana decided to help sage Vishwamitra to kill Tataka and Subahu, Maricha escaped. Tataka and Subahu represents the ego and attachment. Maricha represents the desires. So when you do not control the desires, it come and haunt you later. So he conspired with Maricha to kidnap Sita, and Maricha warned him. Maricha warned him that, listen, you are playing with fire. You don't know the strength of Rama. Maricha has first-hand experience because in no time, Rama and Lakshmana together destroyed the dreaded, most powerful demons, Tataka and Subbaha. So you're playing with that. But Ravana was so arrogant to listen to somebody else's suggestion or opinion. That's what the ego does to us. When your ego is so uncontrolled, you become so haughty, so cocky, so powerful, you do not want to listen to somebody else's point of view. Uncontrolled ego prevents you from looking at an alternative way, an alternative method. You become so adamant with your point of view. You become so attached, you become so obsessed with your idea or ideology, and that prevents you from listening. Listening, by the way, is a very important skill to learn. Talking is no big deal. Any fool can talk. Don't perform assumptions, please. When we were children, our parents taught us how to speak. When the child become a year or so, they start teaching the mama, dada, tata, etc. Did your parents teach you how to listen? Did not. That's why you're going through suffering in marital relationship, because the husband doesn't speak. When the husband speaks, the wife doesn't listen. When the wife speaks, husband doesn't listen. When both of them speaks, the neighbors listen. There are many institutions in the world which teach public speaking. Have you ever come across one institution in the world which teaches public listening? And yet to listen is more difficult than to speak. When Maricha spoke out against Ravana's idea of kidnapping Sita, warned him that you are playing with fire. That is not right thing to do. It's dangerous. But Ravana was so adamant about his strength. He was so arrogant about his power. You know, the story goes about Ravana. As I told you yesterday, he had the knowledge of Vedas. He was a great artist, veena player. He was a pandit, can perform havan. He knew the science of medicine so well, everything. And he was so arrogant about it. All right. So he prayed to Lord Shiva. He was a devotee of Lord Shiva, by the way. You know, when even the evil people, the Rakshasas pray to lords, our gods, they have no choice. They have to confer the boon. So he prayed to Lord Shiva for years and years of austerity, and he wanted that power. What power did he want? He wanted to be invincible. He wanted to be invincible, that he should not be killed by Rakshasas, that is demons, nor gods. He wants to be invincible. He should not be killed by gods and Rakshasas, the demons. He did not think much of human. Humans are so powerless. What can they do? So he did not deliberately, he didn't think much of. That's what arrogance do. You will find this happening in the sports field, in the business field, in any field when there is a competition. Never ever take the opponent lightly. Wise people never take the opponent lightly. You find in the field of sport, the moment somebody takes the opponent lightly, they'll be defeated. So Ravana took humans so lightly. What can human beings do? So he refused to pray to Lord Shiva. Immunity from human. So Lord Shiva appeared. What do you want? Ravana said, I want the blessing. I should not be killed by demons, Rakshasas, nor by devas, gods. Shiva granted. Because no gods, no demons can kill Ravana, Vishnu had to take the form of human, the avatar of human, like Lord Ram, to kill Ravana. The Purna avatar among the 10 avatars of Vishnu. The 7th avatar is Lord Ram. So Rama had to take the avatar of, Vishnu had to take the avatar of Lord Ram as a human to kill Ravana. Now, this is what the power of uncontrolled ego that you got to be so careful. Didn't want to listen to. So he plotted the plan of kidnapping Rama's consort Sita while they were in the forest. All right. So how did they plot it? I'm sure you know the story. But for us, for the benefit of probably to renew your thinking, I will briefly narrate it. All right. So Sita, Lakshmana, and Rama were so happy in the forest. As I told you, they never ever missed the luxuries that they've been enjoying. Very comfortable, no problems. So one morning, after the breakfast, perhaps, they were sitting and relaxing in their little kutir, little ashrama they have set up in the forest. As they were sitting, Sita saw something unique, something beautiful, something very charming. Sita saw a golden deer whisk passing. When Sita saw the golden deer, she was so enamored by the beauty of that golden deer. She was so carried away by the attractions of the golden deer that was whisk passing. And she drew the attention of Rama. Look, what's the deer? And Lakshmana looked at it also. They were not carried away. They were not enamored by it. But Sita was obsessed. And she requested Rama, her consort, my dear, I want that deer. And Rama, being wise as he is, knew there is some foul play. So Rama advised Sita, my dear, that deer looks very dangerous. Don't ask for it. But Sita was so enamored, so attracted by the deer, she wants it. Again, Rama warned, that's not something, doesn't look real, that doesn't look normal. Don't ask for it. But she was insisted. She was obsessed with that desire for that deer. She wanted that deer. And Rama had to go. What you need to understand is that when she saw the golden deer, the better sense did not prevail in her mind that there has never been a golden deer. How can there be such a golden deer? There must be some foul play. That thought did not cross her mind. That's what happened to us. When your mind is deluded by certain attractions of the world, the reasoning gets drowned in that attractions. A boy who is so attracted to a girl or vice versa, when the wise people advise them, maybe the parents or whoever it is, listen, is this the girl that you want to get married? Or is this the boy that you want to get married? Of course, carried away by the attractions. I'm only taking that one. There are so many attractions that a human being is susceptible to. They don't think. Just like Sita. When she was attracted by that golden deer, Rama wanted. No, he insisted. And Rama instructed Lakshmana and said, wait here. All right, I will pursue the deer. And Rama left their kutir, their ashrama, and went in pursuit of the deer. Remember, the objective of the deer was actually Maricha, the demon, disguised as a golden deer. Maricha disguised as a golden deer to draw Rama away from the kutir, Sita, from Sita and living in the kutir. That was the objective, because if Rama around, there is no way Ravana can fight Rama or Maricha can kidnap Sita, no way. So the objective was to draw Rama away from the kutir, and Rama went in pursuit. The more he pursued, the further the deer receded. This is the way with life. When you're obsessed with something, the more you chase it, the further. That is the nature of the worldly happiness. You believe happiness is just down the corner. It's like chasing the horizon. When you look at the horizon, right? You think horizon ends there. But when you go there, horizon recedes. Upanishads gives an example of mirage. In a hot summer, during hot season in a desert, you're so thirsty, you want water, and you can see mirage, which looks like water, and you run after it. And when you get there, you realize that there is no water, it's hot sand. And what happened? Mirage recedes. And you think there is water. You go further, there is no water there. It's like that, the worldly pleasures. You think, when I get that, there are many youngsters who's got a desire for a dream car. And they believe that once I get the car, I'm a man. Or a particular partner. Once I get that girl to get married, I feel I'm a man. Or that boy to get married, I'm a girl. That feeling. It's emptiness. By all means, get married, no problem. At least then you'll start becoming philosopher. So this is the way with the worldly pleasures. Rama chased the deer, it receded further, and when Rama realized that there is some foul play here, he realized that. He picked up the bow and arrow and shot the deer. It didn't take much time. As Rama shot the deer imitated the voice of Rama and cried out, all right, Sita, Lakshmana. The deer imitating voice of Rama. And Lakshmana and Sita sitting in the kutir heard the desperate cry of Rama. And Sita panicked. And she told Lakshmana, your brother is in trouble. Go assist him. Lakshmana was so calm and composed. I know my brother. Nothing is wrong with him. He's very well and safe. Don't worry. There is some foul play that's happening. But Sita, anxious, nervous. Number one, she was obsessed with the desire for the golden deer. Number two, she can hear the desperate cry of her consort, beloved Rama. And she was in a delusion, panic-stricken. And she asked Lakshmana, go and help. Lakshmana said, no. And Sita said something obnoxious, which no sister will tell the brother-in-law, young brother. What did she say? She said something to this effect. You mean you don't want to go because when Rama dies, you want to marry me? Something to that effect. Lakshmana had the highest reverence to Sita. He always treated her as mother. One of the versions of Ramayana says that Lakshmana never ever looked at her face out of sheer reverence. He always looked at her feet. Feet is a symbol of reverence, like I mentioned yesterday. Lakshmana always looked at Sita's feet with utter reverence. That is the kind of reverence Lakshmana had towards Sita. Never ever any other thought would cross his mind. To such a brother-in-law, she uttered something so nasty, so obnoxious. Lakshmana had no choice but to leave the kutir, the little ashrama, to help his brother. But before Lakshmana left the palace, left the kutir, he instructed Sita. And first of all, he drew a line around the little kutir, the famous Lakshmana Rekha. Lakshmana drew a famous line around the kutir and instructed Sita that whatever happens, the world may come to an end, whatever happens, don't cross the line. Remain within the line, don't cross. Lakshmana left the kutir, the ashrama, went to assist Rama. And when Lakshmana met Rama, they faced with each other. Rama said, why did you come? You left Sita all alone in the forest. And they came rushing. In the meantime, what happened? You know the story. Ravana came in the guise of a sadhu, a mendicant, seeking alms, seeking bhiksha, seeking charity. Give me some food. And it is the tradition of every Hindu home to give bhiksha, charity, dhanam to a sadhu. Whenever a sadhu comes, and in India it happens, all right, especially you may not see that in the cities, but in the rural places, sadhus move around even now, from home to home, because they don't have any possessions and, they live on alms. So when a sadhu comes, a pativrata, a devoted Hindu woman will not let them go. Whatever it is, they have to give. Not that they have to, they choose to give. So Sita went and searched in the kutir. They found some grains and fruits or whatever it is. Wanted to give the sadhu, the mendicant, Ravana. And as Sita said, please come and receive. But as Ravana was about to cross the line, there was fire. The fire cropped up. The fire, on the line where Lakshmana drew the line, the fire cropped up. Ravana could not cross. Perhaps that is where they got the idea of electric fence. I can't think of anything else. The intruder cannot cross. There was fire. And mendicant, the sadhu requested, oh mother, please see what happened. There is fire. I can't come inside. Please come out and give me dhanam. Remember, Ravana attacked Sita's nobility. Not anything else. He targeted the nobility of Sita. Remember, in life, is compassion good or bad? Depends on where you place it. Misplaced compassion can get you into deep trouble. Just like Sita, she placed the compassion upon a visiting mendicant and ignored the instruction of Lakshmana, who said, whatever happens, don't cross the line. Sita identified her so-called benevolent attitude of giving dhanam, ignored the instruction by Lakshmana, and she crossed the line. Ravana kidnapped her, pushed her in his private plane. Ravana had private plane of his own, by the way. It is called Pushpaka Viman. Viman in Sanskrit means plane, Pushpaka Viman. Ravana dragged her into the plane and escaped. And as Ravana was escaping with Sita, Jatayu, the king of birds, saw that he knew that there is the foul play. So he obstructed from Ravana kidnapping Sita, but Jatayu was too, or Ravana was too powerful. Jatayu, he just picked up the sword and clipped her wing. And the Jatayu fell, bleeding profusely on the verge of death. When Lakshmana and Rama was returning back to the kutir in the ashrama, they saw Jatayu bleeding profusely on the verge of death. It is Jatayu who gave the news to Rama and Lakshmana that Rama's wife, consort Sita, has been kidnapped. It was too late. They came back and they saw that the kutir was empty. Sita became a victim, a slave to Ravana. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, is the story which you know. Now what does it mean for you and me in this life? How is it relevant to our personal life? What does golden deer mean? What does Ravana's warning mean? In life, you will always find some kind of attractions and temptations. No matter how evolved you are, no matter how many years you have been practicing spirituality, Vedanta or religion or whatever it is, you will always find some sort of attraction in you. That attraction that tempts you, that draws you, that instant gratification that draws you away from the path of truth, path of righteousness, is represented by the golden deer. Golden means very attractive, very tempting, very tantalizing. All right, deer, what is the characteristics of a deer? Deer, one of the very fast, one of the swiftest animals. Their body is so aerodynamically designed to leap and run very fast. And it's very difficult to shoot a deer also. I'm talking about those days with bow and arrow. So two things you got to understand when it comes to golden deer. Number one, it's golden. Number two, it is swift. Represents the attractions, the temptations of the world. That is, the worldly pleasures are momentary, temporary, it whispers like a deer. Number two, it is very attractive. It is very difficult to resist. This aspect of difficulty in resisting the temptation. Remember, every single one of us we all have a golden deer that is around us, which is tempting, which is distracting you, which is distracting your focus and attention away from what you want to pursue. Isn't it? You examine. There is golden deer. To some people, it is alcohol. To others, it is wealth, either noble or illicit wealth. Something or the other, I don't know what it is. You got to identify. Numerous. For some, it is gambling. So what is your golden deer that is so attractive, so tempting? That is dragging you away from your chosen path. Attractions of the world. When you are tempted by these attractions, remember, there is a safety device within you. More than one, I'll explain. The first of the two safety devices is your conscience. Your conscience within. What is your conscience? What does the conscience do? And what do you got to listen to that conscience, because conscience can never ever go wrong. Conscience acts like a compass. Captain of the ship looks at the compass. Compass always points towards the north. The moment you know north, you know south, east, west, northeast, southwest, all the other many directions. So also the conscience within us always points you towards the right direction. That conscience is represented by the warning of Rama, that there is some foul play. So when we are attracted towards some forbidden pleasures, there is that inner warning, that conscience, that unseen hand that is holding you back. When you're tempted towards something wrong, something negative, something adharmic, something forbidden by the society or by your own conscience, you cannot afford to live it or run after it. That is represented by Rama's warning. Conscience. Strike the balance of your thoughts and actions between what is legally right and what is morally right. It is not enough to do everything that is legally right. What is legally right may be morally wrong, and what is morally right may be legally wrong. Conscience strikes the balance between what is legally right and what is morally right. If you hit the conscience, William Shakespeare says in his play of Hamlet, "This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man." It's an interesting episode in the play. There are many places, the description of conscience, but the best that I remember, that I know, is when Shakespeare described the conscience in the play Hamlet. There's a conversation between the father and son. The son is Laertes. The father is Polonius. Now, this particular advice is often known as Polonius' advice to Laertes. Laertes, the son, is leaving England to Paris, France, for higher education. And just before he was departing, he comes to the father, kneels in front of the father and seeks his blessing. And the father says, "There my blessings with thee, my blessings are with you." And he says, "These few precepts in thy memory look thou character. These few advice that I'm giving you, remember, and it will determine your character." And the father gives a series of very important, practical, relevant advice to the son, father to the son. And having given out all those series of advice, he concludes by saying, "This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as night the day. Thou canst not then be false to any man." What is more important, what is above all this advice that I'm giving you, what is more important is to follow your conscience. Be true to thine own self, inner voice. It must follow as night the day. You got to follow your conscience as meticulously and precisely as night follows the day. Thou canst not then be false to any man. You'll never be false to anybody. You'll never go wrong in life. Conscience, that is represented by Rama's voice. But Sita, number one, attracted by the golden deer. Number two, she ignored the conscience. Lakshmana left the kutir. And before Lakshmana left, what did he do? He drew the famous line, Lakshmana Rekha. Rekha means line. Because it is drawn by Lakshmana, it is called Lakshmana Rekha. Now, what does that mean? Even when you are tempted by any attractions or worldly pleasures, it happens. There's something, right? You are still safe, provided you remain within the line of discipline. So the famous Lakshmana Rekha represents the line of discipline. Disciplines, no doubt, is painful, all right? Discipline is not enjoyable. That is the beauty of it. So when you are attracted, you remain within the line of control, line of self-control, you're safe. The moment you cross the line of self-control, what happens? You will become a slave to Ravana. Ravana is described as a 10-headed demon, monster with 10 heads. Again, not to be taken literally, as I told you. Ravana's 10 head is not to be taken literally, as the pictorial representation of Ravana you will see as 5 heads on left side and 5 heads on the other side. If that were so, can you imagine how terrible, what will be the value of all the possessions and money and harem, everything has got 10 heads. If all the 10 heads catch cold, can you imagine how can he be sneezing? Or how will he be able to fly in his private plane? He can't even get in the first place. Then what does it mean, Ravana having the 10 heads? Ravana's 10 heads symbolizes the 10 senses. The 10 senses within each one of us, all right? The 10 senses are the 5 organs of perceptions: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the skin. And the 5 organs of actions: hands, legs, genitals, organs of evacuation, and organ of speech. You become a slave to the 10 senses. And analyze, most people are slave to the 10 senses because they are working from morning till evening. For what? To make money. And what does the money do? Money pampers. Money pamper the 10 senses. With money, you can buy color and form for the eyes, smell for the nose, sound for the ears, taste for the tongue, and touch for the skin. That's all. Money cannot buy knowledge, money cannot buy happiness, money cannot buy anything. So when you become, when Ramayana says you become a slave to Ravana, 10 senses, that's what's happening. A lot of people cannot think beyond working for money. They don't have a higher purpose. The Ramayana doesn't say don't pursue money. By all means pursue, but that should not be the only objective. The human life, if you analyze the human life is engineered to fulfill a purpose. There are two purposes in life. Purpose in life and the purpose of life. Purpose in life and the purpose of life. The purpose in life differ from person to person. It is your passion. It is for which you are born. It is the very purpose of your existence. Purpose in life. Purpose of life is to reach the ultimate God realization, to discover your own identity, your own self. Are we living a life of purpose, or are we a slave to Ravana? Ravana, the 10-headed monster, kidnapped Sita. So Sita represents, in this context, Sita represents Jivatma, the individual, who's at the moment a slave to Ravana. When Sita was kidnapped by Ravana, she refused to accept everything that Ravana had offered. Now, you got to give credit to Ravana. Although Ravana kidnapped Sita, he did not touch her. He did not touch her with a bad intention, of course. Could have done it. Right? So, Sita refused to enter the palace of Ravana, all the material splendor. In that material splendor, she rejected. And where did she stay? She stayed in the Ashoka Vanam or Ashoka Vatika, the famous Ashoka Vanam. She stayed there for days and days and weeks and months together, refused to accept all the offering. Ravana offered everything. Ravana already had many queens, wives, allowed Sita to be his primary queen, nothing. Sitting there in the Ashoka Vanam, she was single-pointedly focused upon Rama, nothing else. But let's go back to the Ravana that is being, or Sita being imprisoned or becoming victim of Ravana. Our 10 senses. Remember, our 10 senses are very, very powerful. A lot of people underestimate the power of senses. As I told you yesterday, when a man smokes cigarette, he thinks he is smoking cigarette, but the cigarette is smoking him. So does alcohol. So does all the other temptations, because there is no control. Our sense organs rule our life today. There are so many attractions. Viveka Chudamani. Viveka Chudamani is one of the amazing, brilliant, extremely practical composition composed by sage Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya. In that literature, Vivek Chudamani, Shankaracharya analyzes the lives of 5 animals that have got attraction for one sense organs. You know, animals, unlike human, they don't have all the 10 senses developed. Their senses are partially developed. But some of them, although 1 or 2 senses are fully developed, they have weakness for it. He analyzes fishes have got weakness for tongue. If you see your fish tank, what do the fish do? They just, swim around and go on gathering whatever that they can get. And what do the fish do? Fishes gobbles fisherman's hook, gets killed. Weakness for tongue. Fishes are killed because of the weakness for tongue. Bees have got weakness for smell. When bees get carried away by the smell, that the flowers emanate, the fragrance, and the bees go in that direction to extract honey. And the bee sits on the flower, go deep inside, absorb honey, And not only bee, there are other insects also. And for certain insects, too much of honey can be intoxicating. And they get so absorbed. In the evening, certain flower closes, like lotus, for example. When the flower closes, the insect, the bee gets stuck inside, gets killed because weakness for smell. Deer has got weakness for sound. Olden days, when before the guns were invented, they used bow and arrow to shoot, or spear. And it's very difficult to shoot a deer with bow and arrow because deer is very swift. And they are very, very attentive. Their listening ability is very, very sharp. So what do? The hunters will form a team. One hunter would play a flute or similar instrument which produces melodious melodious sound rather. When the deer listen to the sound of the flute, the deer gets so transfixed, gets so absorbed into the sound of the flute, it doesn't move. It gets so transfixed, so absorbed. That is when, the one hunter distract the deer with the flute. The other hunter would come behind and shoot the deer. Why? Weakness for sound. Elephants have got weakness for skin. During the mating season, elephants move around in the forest trying to find a mate. They move in herds. So the elephant hunters, hunting the elephant for its, ivory and other precious stuff. What they do is that they dig a pit. They dig a sizable pit. And they camouflage the pit with the leaves, etc. So when the elephant move around, the elephant gets stuck in the pit. And if it is a big, fully grown elephant, they kill the elephant and cut the ivory, etc., the horn. And if it's a small elephant, they save the elephant and they train it for domesticating. And rest of his life, the elephant is a slave to man. Elephant become a slave, become victim because of skin. And moth has got weakness for eye. When moth sees the flame, the moth goes and embraces the flame, fire, gets killed. You must have seen in your lampshade, sometime the insect gets in because so attracted by the brightness of the light and can't get out, get killed. He talks about 5 animals. Shankaracharya talks about the lives of 5 animals who's got weakness for 5 sense organs, and each one of them are killed by weakness for 1 sense organ. And then he says, what's interesting is Shankaracharya says in the very next verse, he says, human beings have got weakness for all the 10 sense organs. We human beings have got weakness for all the 10 sense organs. How we survive is a miracle. Because there's so much, and a lot of people who succumb or who have challenges are because of the weakness for sense organs. That weakness is represented by Ravana. In comparison to animals are blessed in many ways because animals don't really have weakness for sense organ. The animals are born with default setting. All right. In other words, animals by birth itself, they are born with what I would call as built-in discipline. Animals have got built-in discipline, whereas human beings have got conscious discipline. I repeat, you need to make a conscious choice to discipline in terms of your eating, your every other habits. Animals don't have to. They have a built-in discipline, so much so that animals do not eat wrong type of food. Animals do not eat food at the wrong time. Animals do not eat the food wrong quantity. When a lion in the jungle, when lion strikes a buffalo, a giant buffalo, of course they share the food. Even if there is excess meat available, the lion does not eat more than it can consume. It only eats to quench the hunger. Just because there is excess meat available, neither it eats more, nor does it put the meat in the fridge for next day. Next time when the lion is hungry, it kills, it has a fresh meat. Look at our eating habits. Some people, a lot of our diseases are because of our eating style, our lifestyle. Because we follow that such an unhealthy lifestyle, we have actually destroyed the healing ability of our own body. Remember, your physical body is one of the most powerful laboratory on the face of earth. Our body is so beautifully engineered to produce all the chemicals and nutrients and vaccines that is available to fight any diseases. But because of our unhealthy lifestyle, we become so dependent upon external medicine. We've destroyed our own healing ability in our body. Animals don't. Animals lead a very natural lifestyle. Their eating habits are very disciplined. Animals do not eat for pleasure. Their mating habits are very disciplined. Animals do not mate for pleasure. They mate only for reproduction and procreation. It is the human beings who makes procreation their recreation. It's human beings who mate for pleasure, and they indulge in that pleasure. And we say, when some people are behaving badly, don't we say they behave like animal? Don't ever say that, because animals don't behave badly. It is human beings who behave badly. That indisciplined lifestyle begins with uncontrollable senses. And the tragedy is that what we do to the animals, our eating habits, you all know, we know that we ought not to eat processed food continuously, don't we? We know that, if you continuously eat processed food, eat food that is grown on the plants, not processed in the plant, as they often say. But what do we feed our animals, our pets, dogs and cats? Processed food. The animals don't have the luxury of, the animals that are looked after by a human being, don't have the luxury of eating the natural food, because they're constantly fed by the processed food that is manufactured in the plants. And you wonder, why do animals suffer from cancer and other diseases? No, animals that are growing, living in the natural habitat don't necessarily fall ill as much as the animals that are looked after by human beings. Why? Because we feed them processed food. It is unfair. And why do you look after the animals? Why do you keep a pet? Not because you want to look after the animals, because animals gives you affection. And dog is one of the animals who always give unconditional affection. Therefore, dog becomes the most popular pet in the world. You look after your pet not because you want to care for the pet. You look after the pet because that pet gives you unconditional affection. And what do you give them? Processed food. We do not allow them to lead a natural lifestyle. Animals have a built-in discipline. And it is those animals that are to be taken to the doctor and vet, etc. We take our pet to, animals don't need their hair to be combed and nailed to be clipped, etc. because that's their natural lifestyle. Human beings need to. So what do? We assume that animals also need that, because we want to make our dog look fancy, look presentable, look fashionable. Some people cut their tail, some people plug, poke their ear, others cut their hair, etc. Animals have a built-in discipline. Human beings have to make a conscious discipline, because we have the choice, the free will, and we do not exercise our free will properly. We make wrong choices and we have become a victim to the senses. So Sita has become a slave to Ravana. Sita has become under the control of Ravana. Now, the next part of Ramayana, the stage onwards, talks about how to regain the lost freedom. As I told you in the beginning, Ramayana describes how we have fallen from the height of spiritual perfection to this stage of sorrow and suffering that we go through, and how to retrace the step and experience that bliss right here. Now that bliss, of people talk about heaven, is not something that you will achieve later. Heaven is right here. Heaven and hell is not a geographical place that you will reach later. Heaven and hell is a mental condition. It is not only Hindu philosophy. John Milton, in his epic Paradise Lost, he says, mind is its own place. It can create a heaven out of hell or a hell out of heaven. Your mind creates your own hell. Your mind creates your own heaven. So how do we retrace that step and create that heaven right here so that we can live in the realm of bliss, peace, happiness, and joy, with or without success? A lot of people feel that success produces happiness. But what Ramayana says, happiness produces success. Change the paradigm. So how do we retrace that step and find that elysium of happiness, that source of happiness right within each one of us? So that inner journey to retrieve, to save Sita is next part of Ramayana. And Ramayana describes various beautiful steps as to how do we do that, which we will discuss tomorrow at same place, same time. We'll conclude with the Shanti part. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angajanji, for another inspiring and dynamic discourse. I think one of the many important practical tips we can take away from today's discourse is to self-introspect consistently, as an uncontrolled mind is your own worst enemy. Angajanji said to us that Ravana represents the deadly combination of an uncontrolled mind and ego, which leads to many desires and greed. Therefore, we need to stop feeding our desires and stop entertaining our wandering thoughts and engage regularly with the scriptural teachings and principles and introspect. So thank you so much, Angajanji. This wisdom and knowledge is truly invaluable. Dear devotees, I'm sure we can all definitely appreciate the time and effort that goes into putting together such a power-packed program of this nature, which we are so lucky to receive from the comfort of our home by merely logging onto YouTube. So, if possible, let us show our appreciation by offering voluntary Guru Dakshina in the form of cash donations so that the great work of Angajanji and the Life Mastery Foundation can continue. No amount is too small to make a difference. You can visit the website for information on making a donation. You can also get in touch with us via email for more information. The details are available in the description box below. Also, as mentioned by our previous MCs, if you wish to continue this enlightening journey, kindly visit www.lifemastery.vision to browse and invest in Angajanji's various brilliant CDs, DVDs, and books. Once again, thank you everyone for joining today. Looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow evening, same time, same place. A blessed evening to you all. Stay safe, take care, and Hari Om.